Ladies and gentlemen, LEIGH-ANN Buchanan.
I am an innovator, but I look nothing like these folks. You see, the stories we tell about the world's greatest innovators often exclude people that look like me, people from diverse backgrounds, experiences, and identities. By definition, innovation is simply the process of creating something new. In fact, it comes from the root two Latin words, in and novus, meaning into new. Innovation itself is identity neutral, yet it's the culture of innovation that perpetuates this notion that some of us are born with a special set of skills or an innate predisposition to being natural-born innovators. Let me share with you a few examples of why this very narrow and sometimes exclusive view of innovation can be highly problematic. During the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, the pulse oximeter machine became extremely important for detecting advanced complications. You see, this device is able to measure the level of oxygen in your blood by sending a little light through your fingertip. But if a machine is not properly calibrated for people with darker skin tones like me, it can give inaccurate readings and ultimately result in disparate health outcomes. As a woman, I am 71% more likely to be injured in an automobile accident because of my female anatomy. But it took the transportation safety industry over 40 years until 2022 to create the first female crash test dummy. And when it comes to digital connectivity, over 300 million Americans use the internet. We use it every single day. Yet up to 98% of websites still remain inaccessible to people with disabilities, particularly those who are visually impaired. Now, I've spent the better part of a decade leading projects designed to make technology and innovation more accessible to everyday people. One in particular that you may know well, the Venture Cafe, supported more than 55,000 innovators, 70% of whom were people of color and 50% who were women. Over the course of a 5-year period, our team collected rich data and insights on how people naturally innovate and why they don't. Interestingly enough, the biggest threshold barriers to innovation were not lack of funding, socioeconomic status, access to mentorship, or your zip code. What surfaced as the number one barrier, the roadblock, was actually someone's inability to self-identify as an innovator. Now, on a personal note, I know what it feels like to be an outsider. In fact, every single time I hear the buzzword innovation, my mind is immediately transported back to a specific moment. It was during a mock job interview for the role as the founding executive director of Venture Cafe that I was asked the following question: what could you possibly know about innovation? I admit the question itself is relatively harmless. At the time, I was a practicing attorney, and attorneys are not known to be the most innovative people in the world. But this innocent inquiry triggered my insecurity. It triggered my imposter syndrome, because I struggled to see myself as an innovator. And what I thought was my insecurity actually represented a commonly held belief, the myth that only some of us have what it takes to be innovators. The truth is, innovation is actually for everyone, and it's our social conditioning that tells us otherwise. The notion that your identity can play a critical role in unlocking hidden talents or skills is not a new concept. In fact, for most of modern history, we actually used to categorize someone's intellectual ability in a very binary way. You're either smart or you're not. Then along came a psychologist called Howard Gardner, and he believed that everybody was a genius in some way or another. But the problem was that the aperture through which we viewed intellectual capacity was just far too narrow. He then pioneered the theory of multiple intelligences, which was able to identify more than 7 distinct types of intellectual capacity. And what's powerful about Gardner's work is not only that he created a mental model, but he gave all of us language to unlock the full spectrum of our intellectual abilities. The same holds true for innovation. Now, I've logged hundreds of hours observing and interacting with people in spaces designed to accelerate innovative activity and mindsets. And over the course of this time, I began to see some clear, repeatable patterns of how people naturally create new things, how they innovate. So I developed a simple test, a framework, if you will, to help anyone discover hidden innovation traits from across 4 specific domains: the disruptor, the connector, the distributor, and the influencer. Now, these innovator styles are not mutually exclusive. In fact, you can possess characteristics from across all 4. Now, I want you to listen carefully and try to figure out where you fit in. You are a disruptor if you are able to understand the most complex ideas and concepts. At your core, you are an architect of new systems, and your tools of trades are models and frameworks that help us shift how we see and experience the world. Disruptors are visionary thinkers that push us to reimagine the principles, the values, and the ideals upon which we build our social infrastructure, our culture, and our communities. Now, for my connectors in the room, you intuitively understand how people relate to each other and how they form deep bonds. You have the ability to create new ways to help us bridge even the widest gaps of difference. You have the power to elevate networking beyond just transactional exchanges to spaces that generate genuine opportunities to maximize human potential. Connectors, you're brokers of social capital, and you're extraordinarily adept at removing the barriers of privilege that we easily and often unconsciously attach to our interpersonal interactions. To my distributors in the room, your superpower is your ability to accurately assess the value of just about anything. You encourage us to reimagine who ascribes the worth and how we calculate value of people, places, products, ideas, and experiences. You're the ultimate plug because you are so generous in how you help reallocate capital and resources to places that need it and people who lack access. And finally, the influencers. You understand how people and institutions wield power, collectively and individually. You have the ability to motivate people into action because you recognize the necessary inputs that change the human behavior. You are able to build movements that are truly inclusive because you often center as leaders those who are lost and left behind. As you can see from my results, my primary style is as a disruptor, hence the framework, and my secondary style is as a connector. And I have to admit, I had real trouble calling myself an innovator until I found the right language to describe. That's because language is the foundation of our identities. So my message to leaders, organizations, and teams is simply this: we need much better language. If we can relinquish control of how we describe who qualifies as an innovator, then we can better empower people from diverse backgrounds and experiences and identities to develop solutions to the challenges that are impacting us all in our workplaces, in our school environments, to the existential threats that are facing our planet. We're taught to believe that technology and innovation are these very interchangeable concepts, but that actually couldn't be further from the truth. To improve the human condition, that's the purpose of innovation. And when everyday people like you and me harness the power of our identity as innovators, we can build a more equitable society, more just institutions, new sets of social norms, and accessible pathways to opportunity. 40 years ago, Bob Marley issued us a grand challenge. He did. He said, "Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. Innovation is what liberates us. Innovation is what gives us the power to free ourselves from even the tightest grip of the status quo." The true value of innovation, the true currency of innovation, it's freedom. The freedom to see the world not as it is, but as it could be. Thank you.